Seeing at 6:03, I'd like to call the January 15, 2020 regular meeting of the Kenai City Council to order. And I'd ask that you rise if you're able and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Clerk, please call the roll.
Mayor Gabriel,
Here.
Councilmember Peterkin,
Here.
Councilmember Glendenning,
Here.
Councilmember Petty is absent, Vice Mayor Malloy,
Here.
Councilmember Navarre is also absent, Councilmember Naxtet,
Here.
Mayor Gabriel, you have a quorum.
Thank you. I now we'll now go to, or if we get to agenda approval, Council, I'd like to call attention to lay down you should have in front of you with several requested revisions to the agenda packet. Action, add to item G5, purchase orders over 15,000, revised list, revised memo requested by the city manager. And add to item G8, remote seller sales tax implementation, KBB memo, KBB ordinance, and city attorney. Pleasure, Council or Vice Mayor Malloy.
Thank you, Mayor Gabriel. Move to approve the agenda with the requested revisions to the agenda packet listed by the mayor and requesting unanimous consent.
Second.
Unanimous consent was requested. Is there any objection? Seeing none, the agenda is approved. So we're going to do the Purple Heart. Okay. So next up, we have the Purple Heart City Proclamation. And I have Mr. Jim McHale with the, he's the chair of the local Purple Heart committee or commission here. If you come forward and I'll present the presentation. Would you like to introduce your?
This is Vice Commander Bob Gordon and Adjutant Nick Preston. And we're members of the local chapter, Kenai Peninsula chapters of Military Order of Purple Heart.
Okay, how many members do you have?
I believe at last count, unfortunately we're losing them, around 32.
Okay. And before I do this, I just want to explain that, you know, it's kind of taken a while to get this in, and I kind of apologize for that. But I would like to say that it's nice to start out the new year to recognize the Purple Heart and the folks that have sacrificed so much for the freedoms that we enjoy in our country and our city. I think we lose that track of that more and more, what it takes to the sacrifice that was put forward by the people that gave the ultimate sacrifice and were injured in battle. To have what we have. So I just want to start out by saying that, and I'll put that there. Whereas the city of Kenai has great admiration and the utmost gratitude for all the men and women who have selflessly served their country and this community in the armed forces. And whereas the Purple Heart is the oldest military decoration still in present use and was initially created as a badge of military merit by General George Washington in 1782, and whereas the Purple Heart was the first award made available to the common soldier and is specifically awarded to members of the United States Armed Forces who have been wounded or paid the ultimate sacrifice in common with the declared enemy of the United States, and whereas the mission of the Military Order of the Purple Heart is to foster an environment of goodwill among the combat, wounded veteran members and their families, promote patriotism, support legislative initiatives, and most importantly, to make sure we never forget. And whereas the city of Kenai appreciates the sacrifices our Purple Heart recipients made in defending our freedoms and believe it is important we acknowledge them for their courage and show them the honor and support they have earned. Now therefore, I, Brian Gabriel Sr., Mayor of the City of Kenai, do hereby proclaim the City of Kenai to be Purple Heart City, a Purple Heart City, and encourage the residents and businesses of Kenai to show their appreciation for the sacrifices Purple Heart recipients have made in defending our freedoms, to acknowledge their courage and to show them the honor and support that they have earned. dated this 15th day of January 2020.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If I can?
Yes, absolutely.
Mr. Mayor, council members, fellow patriots, citizens, and friends. As commander of the Kenai Peninsula chapter of the Military Order of the Purple Heart, and on behalf of all Purple Heart recipients, it is my honor to acknowledge this resolution naming the city of Kenai, Alaska, a Purple Heart city. For clarification on what's required to be a Purple Heart city, the only requirement is gratitude. Gratitude to the sons and daughters of your community who gave their lives or were wounded in combat, defending the freedoms that all Americans enjoy. Your proclamation tonight is an expression of that gratitude to those sons and daughters of the Kenai community who gave their lives or were wounded in action defending our freedoms against an enemy of the United States. As a way of showing our appreciation and our gratitude, it is my privilege to present to the city of Kenai this sign recognizing it as a Purple Heart City. Mayor Gabrielson, council members, thank you for your support. We salute you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Commander McHale.
Thank you.
And, I'd like to get a
Oh, yeah,
pictures up here with council, if you guys could come out here. And thank you for this. I'm sure we'll be able to find, well, Bob left, but I'm sure we'll be able to find a spot.
You'll probably make more of those around.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you can, as many as you want.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you again, sir. Thank you for your
Thank you.
Thank you.
Wreck right on
Bob,
top.
thanks for
Wreck
support.
around top of Pickle
Yeah,
Hill.
thank you.
Yeah, and then everything starts the vehicle there, that's not gonna make it here. Okay.
Yeah, thanks again.
Thank you.
Hey, Jim, I'll open up for, Commander McHale, I'm going to open it up for comments from the rest of the council, if you don't mind. Anybody from council? Vice Mayor Malloy?
Thank you, Mayor Gabriel. Really appreciate your gentleman's service to our country and for coming out tonight in this cold weather to be part of the proclamation. And I appreciate Mayor Gabriel's proclamation very much. And thank you for the sign. Beautiful.
Councilmember Naxton.
Yeah, I'd like to also thank you for coming tonight and for your service to our country. The Purple Heart it's something near and dear to me. I did not serve. My father did. He was in the early part of the Battle of the Bulge and was wounded. He was in Tank Hill and Wheels, the 3rd Armored Division, and I still keep that medal in a place of honor in my home. Thank you.
Councilmember Peterkin.
Yeah, I'd also like to thank you, gentlemen, for coming. We'll proudly put that sign up here and think of it all the time. And I'm also the son of my dad was in the Army in Korea, and have the utmost respect for you, gentlemen. Thank you.
Councilmember Glendenning.
Yeah, I too wish to echo these sentiments. Our family has uniformly had, through each generation that we've been in America, people who have served in the military, and before that, the countries we came from, and your thoughts and just a reminder of the sacrifice and perhaps the ultimate sacrifice that members of our community have made is a poignant reminder of how we enjoy the freedoms, and thank you very much.
And I'd just like to thank you and just say that I appreciate the work you've done beyond your service in the military by what you're doing now. It epitomizes what a patriot and a good citizen should do. And I really look up to you guys and women, men and women who served in I can't say enough about. I didn't serve myself. I think at some point a little bit of some regret I have, but certainly appreciate all you've done to provide the freedoms that we all enjoy. Thank you.
Thank you for your support.
Council, next we have consent agenda. Pleasure, Council. Councilmember Naxton.
I'd move for approval of the consent agenda, request unanimous consent.
Second.
Are there any amendments to the council, or to the consent agenda, Council? Seeing none, I'll have the clerk read into the record the consent agenda, at which time all items will either be approved or introduced as an item and set its public hearing. Ms. Hines, would you please read the consent agenda?
Thank you, Mayor Gabriel. Tonight we have regular meeting minutes from December 4th, 2019, regular meeting minutes from December 18th, 2019. We have approval of bills to be ratified. We have approval of a non-objection letter to be sent to the Alcohol Marijuana Control Office for liquor license renewals for Country Liquor, Upper Deck, and Walmart. And we have introduction of ordinance number 3101-2020, accepting and appropriating a grant from the Rasmussen Foundation for the purchase and installation of security cameras at the city's historical cabins in Old Town Kenai. And that public hearing will be set for February 5th, 2020. And that is your consent agenda.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Is there anybody from the general public that would like to speak to any item that is on the consent agenda? Seeing none, we'll bring it back to council. Is there any objection to approval of the consent agenda? Seeing none, Councilmember Peterkin.
Yeah, I don't know if this is appropriate time, but I have a conflict on the approval of the one bar on the liquor license is my family's bar, our family's bar, so my brother, Rod, and Laura's bar, so
In that case, I'll rule that you cannot participate in that.
appreciate that.
Thank you. Or make it a record. A note to the record, is there any other objection to approval of consent agenda? And I will ask the clerk, there is one item on here, 3102-220 that will be presumably moved to planning and zoning for input.
I think because of the way it works that Councilmember Naxtat was bringing it forth, I did not put it on the consent agenda so that it will be introduced and referred to public hearing, referred to them.
Okay, would there be action we need to take on that this evening then?
Yeah, when you get there.
When we get there, okay, very good. Okay. See no other objection, the consent agenda is approved. That brings us to scheduled public comment, which we have none this evening. Unscheduled public comment. Is there anybody from the general public that'd like to speak to the council on any item that is not on the agenda or consent agenda? Seeing none, we'll move to item D1, public hearings, resolution number 2020-1, recommending that Kenai Peninsula Borough Assembly not enact ordinance number 2019-24, substitute. This was brought forward by the administration. Pleasure of council. Councilmember Naxtat.
I move to enact resolution 2020-01.
Second.
Is there anybody from the general public that'd like to speak to resolution number 2020-01? Seeing none, we'll bring it back to council. Comments, discussion from council? Vice Mayor Malloy.
Thank you. I appreciate the memo from the city manager that's in the packet, and particularly his third paragraph. That could have almost been a whereas. His last paragraph before your consideration is approved. I agree with and support the resolution.
Councilmember Naxtat.
Yeah, I too support the resolution, and I think that it's the borough may be good, well-intentioned, but I think that it's reaching into a city and essentially doing zoning within the city that's not appropriate, and I think that we can't handle that as well as Homer and Seward and Soldotna and so forth.
Councilmember Glendenning.
Yes, I too will be supporting enactment, adoption of this resolution. And I want to thank city manager, attorney, and city staff for drilling down on this proposed borough consideration and really finding out the true implications for our city, and thank you for doing that.
Very good. Any other comments, deliberations from council? Seeing none, clerk, please call the roll.
Mayor Gabriel?
Yes.
Councilmember Peterkin?
Yes.
Councilmember Glendenning?
Yes?
Vice Mayor Malloy?
Yes.
Councilmember Naxtet?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. We're now on resolution number 2020-02, authorizing the joint purchase of self-contained breathing apparatuses, SCBA, equipment for the city of Kenai, Nikiski Fire and Central Emergency Services, brought forth by administration. Pleasure, council. Vice Mayor Malloy.
Thank you, Mayor Gabriel. Move to approve resolution number 2020-02.
Second.
Is there anybody from the general public that'd like to speak to resolution number 2020-02? Seeing none, we'll bring it back to council. Comments, Councilmember Naxton.
Just a question of Mr. Ostrander. By the way, I'm absolutely for this, but is just how, we've done this before, and I think we're doing it with the calcium chloride too. How does that work where we're working with other entities, the borough and all that? And I assume that they're all on board. And but I was kind of wondering how that just functionally works.
Mr. Ostrander.
Thank you, Mayor Gabriel. Councilmember Nack said, this one is actually is different than the calcium chloride. In the case of the calcium chloride, it's actually the borough that produced an RFP and went out and got quotes for the calcium chloride, and we just joined in. This is actually the opposite here, in that we were the entity that applied for the grant, and we're the one that went through the RFP process as well. In this case, both CES and Nikiski, they were involved in the evaluation of the packs themselves, but we're the one that is essentially administering the grant and produced the RFP. So it's the opposite from the calcium chloride, in that they are tagging along in this one.
Councilmember Glendenning.
Yes, I too will be supporting this. I've been aware that perhaps there's been a need to repair and renew, replace these devices, and I know that the borough acknowledged that the city of Kenai, their words, hosted this type of collaboration between the fire departments here in the Central Peninsula, and just want to thank again our city administration for the leadership that they showed in obtaining the grant, so we can have a safe apparatus for our fire departments. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Seeing none, clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Peterkin?
Yes.
Councilmember Glendenning?
Yes?
Vice Mayor Malloy?
Yes.
Councilmember Naxtet?
Yes.
Mayor Gabriel?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Council, we're now on item G4, ordinance number 3102-2020, amending Kenai Municipal Code 14.20.280, public hearings and notifications to reduce the newspaper posting requirement. Councilmember Naxton.
Yeah, I move to introduce ordinance 3102-2020.
Second?
We're going to have a public hearing at this.
Are you going to amend it to add?
I will.
Refer it.
thought it would be appropriate to.
No, we're just introducing it, but we're not having the public hearing, correct?
Right, I think
Yeah.
his
Okay.
plan is to amend the motion.
Okay, very
I'd
good.
like to
Okay.
amend the motion, if I might, Mayor, to refer this ordinance to the Planning and Zoning Commission at their January 22nd meeting.
No, that's what I thought your intention was.
Yeah, I
And-
thought we had to have a
Yeah.
public
And-
comment.
Is there-
And set the public hearing for
And set the public hearing for
February 5th.
February 5th. Thank you.
Okay, very good. Is there a second?
So I'll second the amendment, and so it'd be introduced and then referred, and then a public hearing would be our public hearing. Okay, thank you. Yes,
Yeah, very good.
I second the amendment,
I think I knew where we wanted to go, so I think we're getting there.
or the motion
Is
as
there
amended.
any discussion on the any other discussion on the motion to refer to planning and zoning and set a public hearing date of February 5th?
Request unanimous consent.
Unanimous consent is requested. Is there any objection? Seeing none, that action is approved. Next, we have action approval, purchase orders over $15,000. Is that? Yeah, gotcha. Yeah, so we'll have to amend that. Okay. Yeah, we'll have to amend that, okay.
Do we introduce it, or are we gonna just?
It's an action approval item, so all we have to do is make a motion to amend.
I
Move to
to amend the memo?
If you want to turn your mic on, but just move to approve the
Move to approve.
purchase order list that was provided in the laydown.
Yeah, I guess it's not an amendment. It's almost a substitution.
Yeah, we can either, move to approve it and then amend it by substitution, or you can just move to approve what was provided in the laydown that includes the vendor and the dollar amount.
Gotcha. So I move to amend the vendor list by including North Star Supply LLC under vendor, in the amount of, $22,400.
Second?
Request unanimous consent. Thank you.
Unanimous consent was requested. Councilmember Peterkin.
I just, I'm assuming this is for to salt the roads. I guess it's a question for City Manager Paul.
Mr. Ostrander.
Thank you, Mayor Gabriel. Councilmember Peterkin, this is for the calcium chloride that we use in the summers for dust control.
Thank you. That's great.
Councilmember Naxted.
Just a question. The memorandum that follows right after that has the kind of a fill in the blanks. Are we wanting to do that? Because it has a place for the account number, the total dollar amount, and all of that, or are we just?
The one that was provided in the laydown has everything on it, and you sort of read what was in the laydown, so I
Okay,
took it as
okay.
that you're
Yeah.
approving what was provided in the laydown.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I have no objection to
Okay,
that.
I was just going to say, is unanimous consent was requested? Is there anybody? Okay, I think we're all in agreement here. So seeing no objection, the amendment by replacing the purchase order item in the packet, replacing it with the memo, that one that was in the laydown memo is approved. Next, we have action approval lease assignment from Kenai Fabric Center, Inc. to SOAR International Ministries, Inc., located at 105 and 115 North Willow Street. This is brought forward by administration. Councilmember next, or Vice Mayor Malloy, sorry.
Thank you, Mayor Gabriel. Move to approve the lease assignment from Kenai Fabric Center to SOAR International Ministries, Inc. for the property located at 105 and 115 North Willow Street.
I'll second that.
Any discussion on the motion?
Request unanimous consent.
Unanimous consent was requested. I see your
Yeah,
mic on.
I have
Councilmember
no
Jackson.
objections to any of that, but I just wanted to say that I do appreciate the Kenai Fabric Center, who has been in business there, I think, since 1972. They built the building there and have operated up to this point at any rate. So, but I do support the transition to a more of an aviation oriented business that's on an active taxiway there too.
Thank you. And I guess I should bring out a point maybe for, actually, I just dawned on me, I should probably pass the gavel because I do have to declare I'll theoretically pass the gavel to the Vice Mayor virtually and ask to be recognized.
Yes, Mayor Gabriel.
Yeah, I just wanted to disclose that the Kenai Fabric Center is actually owned by my sister-in-law, and her family has been, they were the ones that started that back in, I think, the 70s, and have run it as a continuous business until now. So I do have a relationship through an in-law relationship to the owners of that Kenai Fabric property, so I want to disclose that.
And I appreciate your disclosing that, but you don't have any, the city attorney could help me out here, but I think you don't have any direct or indirect financial
I
interest with your relatives in the operations.
I have none. No.
Okay, so you're not, you can still participate, would
Okay.
be my ruling.
Thank you.
And I'm sending the gavel back to you virtually. Thank you for the reminder.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Malloy.
Still getting used to it.
Councilmember Peter.
So
Peterkin.
are they gonna move somewhere else or shutting down the business, the fabric center? I know it's not part of our action.
I couldn't answer that, but
Yeah.
I guess I could defer to Mr. Ostrander.
Thank you, Mayor Gabriel, Councilmember Peterkin. I don't know the details of the arrangement. The assignment moved all the liabilities and over to SOAR from the Kenai Fabric Center. I have been told that the Kenai Fabric Center may continue to operate for some period of time. The one thing about the assignment is it does not change the use currently, so it is possible that the Fabric Center could continue to operate for some time.
Thanks.
Vice Mayor Malloy.
Yeah, just a follow-up question on that. So like, if they're going to change the use later, do you anticipate doing a new lease with them rather than, amending the existing lease and kind of bring them under the new code, or what are your thoughts on that?
Mr. Ostrander.
Thank you, Mayor Gabriel. Vice Mayor Malloy. I would anticipate that it would be in the form of a renewal of the lease, which would allow them to extend it and change the terms, and it would be under the new lease conditions that council approved last year.
Thank you.
Councilmember Naxton.
A little confused, the proposed improvements are hangar and paving, according to the form that's in here. So they're not, are they planning on doing something on part of the lot but not the building that's going to continue?
Mr. Ostrander.
Thank you, Mayor Gabriel. Councilmember Naxted, it's my understanding that the hangar would be a separate building from the existing building. So the hangar would be for the aircraft, and the existing building would be for the administration or administrative, the associated administrative stuff with the aeronautical use.
So the immediate plan is to build a hangar, and then the future plan would be to use the existing building for administrative use. Maybe we're getting too far in the weeds, because we're talking about the lease and not the use so much, but I'm just trying to understand.
Mr. Ostrander.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Gabriel. Councilmember Naxted, if you look at the existing use under the current lease, it's a commercial business establishment and aviation services. So theoretically, they could create, or they could build the hangar under the existing lease. However, because of some of the lease incentives that we have built into the new leasing program, again, it's likely that they would submit for a renewal so that they can get the development credits associated with any new development. So I would anticipate that the council will see an actual renewal for a lease come in front of them before those hangar improvements are constructed.
Thank you. Any other questions of administration? Unanimous consent was requested. Is there any objection? Seeing none, the lease assignment from Kenai Fabric Center to SOAR is approved. Next, we have action approval, mayoral nominations for appointments to the Beautification Committee and the Harbor Commission, brought forward by myself. Pleasure, council. Vice Mayor Malloy.
Thank you, Mayor Gabriel. So I would move to confirm the mayor's nomination of Kay Reed to the Beautification Committee and Brandon Borneman to the Harbor Commission.
Second.
Thank you. Yeah, and just for clarification, Kay Reed is actually a reappointment. She kind of got her application late, so it was considered prior to the last meeting. But she was willing to keep on serving, and she does a good job there. So thank you for. I guess we should. Is unanimous consent request?
Requesting unanimous consent.
Okay, very good. Is there any objection to unanimous consent? Seeing none, Mr. Borneman and Ms. Reed are confirmed to their respective committee and commissions. And next we have discussion action item, remote seller sales tax implementation, brought forward by legal. Mr. Bloom.
Thank you, Mayor Gabriel, members of council. In your laydown packet, you have a proposed ordinance that's being introduced to the borough, as well as a memo regarding that ordinance. And in your packet, I'm not pulling it up on mine for some reason, but do you have? I think I included sort of FAQs of facts and
I looked at it today.
I know when I clicked on mine, it's not coming up, but maybe it's down more. Okay, I found it. So, FAQs and sort of, let me scroll down a little more, sorry. As well as a memo from MuniRev regarding how exemptions are going to be processed. And basically, I wanted to do this right now for two reasons. One is I just want to keep council informed as to how we're progressing. Two, the borough attorney, or assistant borough attorney, or I guess he's a deputy now, excuse me, attorney had asked me for a resolution to support the introduction of the borough's ordinance. Because of timing, when he asked for that, I didn't have time, so I thought we might do an action to support it, but I think we now have time to do an actual resolution. We'll have to do our own resolution, and part of that resolution at a later date can be supporting the borough's code change. So basically, I just wanted to keep you informed at the board level for the Remote Sellers Sales Tax Commission. We have approved a uniform sort of sales tax code, as well as some definitions. None of this really affects us because as a city within the borough, I mean, it affects us, but not, we don't have to adopt this ourselves, which the borough is adopting it, and other municipalities that actually collect sales tax will all have to adopt this code, as well as standardize all their definitions, so that their definitions and everything that applies to brick and mortar stores in the jurisdiction will apply in the same way to internet sellers or remote sellers. Our code just adopts the borough's code by reference unless part of it is specifically included, excluded. So we won't have to do any code changes, but I will be bringing a resolution in either the next meeting or the meeting after that, sort of just embracing this idea and supporting the borough's code change. The earliest date that what the borough wants to do is have all their code changes done by March, and we could be going live as soon as April of this year if everything goes well. It's a continually evolving process. We've been having at least weekly meetings. Most weeks we've had a board meeting, a commission meeting, and then some sort of working group. So there's a lot going on, a lot of moving parts. The big vendors are MuniRev, that is doing the software for the collection, and another company called TTR that is doing the mapping and jurisdictions. They've tested the mapping. We've submitted sample addresses, and we've tested the mapping. There have been a few problems, and that's being refined. I don't think any of those problems were within the city of Kenai, but some addresses, properties, actually there's like city lines that go right through the property, so how do you know which jurisdiction to tax? So there's some unique things that we're all working out. But progress is good, and unless there's any specific questions, I guess I'll give a bigger report with our resolution at a later date.
So is there any code changes at all that we would have to make, Mr. Bloom?
Nope, we will not have to do any code changes. We will just have to do some legislation as a part of the commission, the Internet Remote Sellers Sales Tax Commission. In order to be a member, we will have to pass some legislation supporting it and just affirming our commitment to keep moving forward. But we won't have to do any code changes.
Okay. Councilmember Peterkin.
Yeah, I don't know, may be the only one here that doesn't understand all this, but we've been getting internet tax all along and addresses and everything been working. I don't understand why we're doing all this other stuff.
Mr. Bloom?
Thank you, Mayor Gabriel, Councilmember Peterkin. So we have been getting some internet sales tax from Amazon. Only from, and Amazon actually has two business models. One is there's Amazon the store that you can go on and buy stuff. The other is Amazon, sort of the clearinghouse that sells everybody else's products. So we are currently getting sales tax from Amazon that's selling its own Amazon products. We are not getting sales tax from purchases made on Amazon that are not Amazon products.
So we're missing out.
We're missing
On
out.
some stuff.
And that only applies to Amazon as well as other online sales platforms such as Walmart that has a physical presence here in Kenai. What this is doing is expanding it to any online seller, even if they don't have a physical presence in our taxing jurisdiction, as long as they have, I believe it's 200 transactions or $100,000 worth of sales within the state, we are creating jurisdiction to make them collect and remit sales tax.
Okay, thank you. That makes
Yep.
a lot more sense.
Councilmember, or Vice Mayor Malloy?
Thank you, Mayor Gabriel. So I'm thinking, thank you for your report, first of all, City Attorney Bloom, and for the information even, and the update that's the laydown. So I'm understanding that there may be a resolution, maybe at our first meeting in February, to support the ordinance that's proposed by the borough that they're having a public hearing on later in the month. So, and is that kind of what you see happening for that resolution?
Mr. Bloom?
Thank you, Mayor Gabriel, Vice Mayor Malloy. Yeah, so it'll either be two separate resolutions, one supporting borough action and then one affirming our commitment to stay in the commission and participate, or it might be one resolution doing both.
Okay, and then aside from those one or two resolutions, even if we don't need an ordinance, you know, for our code, I guess personally I'd feel more comfortable if we at least did a resolution saying affirmatively that we were adopting the borough code, you know, for this by reference or something, you know, just,
Are
But-
and
but,
are
you
you
know, I
look-
don't know what your thoughts
Are you
are on
thinking of, I think that's great, and that was sort of the intent. My intent was not to do it by ordinance to necessarily change our code, but just do it by
yeah.
by
So there's a public
resolution.
hearing and the public knows that we're on board and we've adopted the borough code for this purpose and everything.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions of Mr. Bloom? Councilmember Naxton?
Kind of going back between the ordinance and your memo here, I was just wondering how the ordinance handles the tax exemption for resale.
Mr. Bloom?
Thank you, Mayor Gabriel, Councilmember Nexted. So we're hoping to be able to issue, and people have certain tax exemptions. They have certificates that they go to the borough, they register their exemption, and they get a certificate. We're hoping they will be able to enter that certificate number in when they make a sale, and their tax exemption will be recognized at that point. There's a memo from MuniRev specific to exemptions in here. They're pretty optimistic about it. There is also likely, at least at first, going to be certain exemptions where there will either people who are entitled to not pay taxes on a certain purchase may have to go to the borough to seek a refund, or potentially even the city. We're trying to work that out. The worst case scenario, I think, is for them to have to come to the city. But unlike sales tax right now, that will all go through the borough. The sales tax on online sales will not go through the borough to the city. They will come directly from the commission to the city. So if somebody wants a refund on a purchase made where the taxing jurisdiction is the city, they may have to come to the city to get a refund. Like I said, that's the least ideal situation. We're working through it, and everything may not, how things look the first few months may not be how they look later on once we get everything figured out and tested. There's a whole lot of moving parts, and because we're missing out on so much revenue, there's a real push just to go live as soon as we can. Certainly not to disenfranchise anybody, but there may be some bumps in the road and some changes that we have to make sort of in the process.
Any other questions of the city attorney? Yeah, I think I'm picking up a vibe that the council's pretty supportive of what we're doing here moving forward. I do have one question. For folks that are within the city of Kenai that actually sell online, does this affect them in any way? Maybe to sell outside of the state?
No, what we're doing wouldn't affect their sales outside the state. The only way that what the Internet Remote Seller Sales Tax Commission is doing is would affect them is if they were a seller in Kenai that sold remotely, say, to Juneau. Right now, they wouldn't be, the Juneau buyers wouldn't be paying sales tax. If this passes, if Juneau adopts the remote seller sales tax code, the company in Kenai would be required to collect sales tax from purchases made in Juneau and remit them to Juneau. But it wouldn't affect anything out of state, only interstate sales.
Very good, thank you. Any other questions of the city attorney? Councilmember Peterkin.
I just, it sounds like you're already on top of this, Scott, and I appreciate all the work you've done, but I'd push, it'd be better if we're not writing refund checks, because that sounds like a big pain in the neck. If we could just kind of stay out of that, it'd be a lot better.
I agree with you, Councilmember Peterkin. That's my biggest concern right now, and I really can't see that working for us. I mean, if we had to do it jurisdiction-wide within the borough, maybe we can figure out a way to do it, but I agree with you.
Yeah, and I was actually, was sort of surprised at how quickly this has moved along, and you guys have been able to put this together. It is pretty amazing considering how complex and how many moving parts there are to this. So.
Thank you. And I guess one more thing I will share is, Alaska's not alone in doing this. The only unique thing that we're doing is we're doing it on a municipal level instead of a state level because we don't have a state sales tax. But most big sellers that sell things online utilize third-party tax collection software platforms that are very familiar with this. So we're not really inventing the wheel, and my understanding is it's not a big challenge to most of the big sellers that they're already doing this in other jurisdictions, and they're set up to make this happen.
Thank you. Seeing no other discussion, we'll move on here to item H1, Commission Committee Reports, Council on Aging.
Thank you, Mayor Gabriel. Council on Aging met January 9th, and they elected a chair, Don Irwin, and a vice chair, Chuck Thornton. And it was just noted through the meeting that in the year 2021 is the 50th anniversary of the Council on Aging, so that's something to put on your calendar for a future commemoration. It was the Council on Aging commended the city for providing a improved access door to allow transit between the living quarters and the senior center, the Vintage Point. There's a lot of people that are mobility challenged, and they had a hard time, getting the door to open or having someone open the door. And what was worked out was very, very, very welcome and appropriate for that situation. there's a code of conduct that's being worked on for the senior center, and they voted to adopt. They just had one or two suggestions, which will be run by the city manager and the attorney. And the suggestion was that it be revisited annually just for any adjustments or oversights. And they thought they would be posted in the senior center and activity areas, and perhaps in the newsletter. And the Council on Aging was thrilled with the tile and carpet that was installed, and they're just really excited about that. It's just a definite improvement and upgrade for the facility. There was how to say this? There's a lot of moving parts in that Council on Aging. They rely so much on grants and just outright donations and money that is given from the private sector to the senior center. And every time I go over there, I'm just informed and amazed at everything that goes on in a positive way for that building and what they do to keep that program going in a positive way. March for Meals is coming up, I believe, in March. There's a Herb Stettler Memorial on the 15th of February, 12:30 at the Senior Center, and Herb was known to all of us. There's a greenhouse project, and the city is looking to manage that in the summer of 2020, and it's something that they've been wanting to do for a while, and just to get a proper scope and scale and the idea of how it's going to be utilized, I think is pretty well finalized. And also, it was mentioned that there's a vehicle replacement program adopted by the city, looking at our fleet of vehicles, and some of them are fairly antiquated and maybe just purpose used, and they bought into the idea that there perhaps is a more efficient way we can use the vehicles that are provided to the city, and other than just generally approving of that, there was no specific mention of programs impacted or vehicles or whatever. They're just glad that there's efficiencies being considered. And let's see, the next meeting, where do I have? Here it is, the 13th of February. And with that concludes my report.
Thank you, Councilmember Glendenning. Airport Commission. I guess we'll take up his report next meeting. Harbor Commission.
Yeah, we had a special meeting, I think it was on the 6th, was it, Jamie? Yeah, and we discussed the Title 11 changes, and Scott came and helped us, I believe, and we went through them pretty well. Jim helped us, and we basically adopted the suggestions from administration, and we're going to kind of I don't know how to say it. We're going to redefine kind of the harbor mission's mission. We're going to work on that moving forward. So I think everybody on the commission's excited about that. We're going to kind of map out our kind of where we want to go and everything, and because it's kind of revitalizing things there, and pretty exciting. We have a meeting coming up. I think it's on the let's see, the 10th, and we have Scott Peters from the Coast Guard coming to, or if he can't make it, he's got some guys that are going to come to kind of report in on the dip netting, so how it went this year and what we'd like to see. And if anybody has anything specific they want to hear about it, then they ask us to let them know, because they'd be glad to report on that. So anyway, but thank you. It'd be a good meeting to attend if anybody wants to hear from the Coast Guard.
Councilmember Glendenning.
Yeah, just to chime in on the Title 11, Attorney Scott worked very long and hard on this, and and I'll be visiting with him tomorrow just to put a little bow on it as we bring it to council. And we thought, just trying to maybe inform the public as to how our waterfront interacts with the city and its definite contribution it makes to the economy and the social structure of the city. One approach was thought, well, rather than just make up a whole bunch of documents and stuff, now why not just work it through the comprehensive plan? You look at the comprehensive plan now, there's like half a page. When you go on the borough website, there's 2 pages. So we're thinking, well, maybe that would be the appropriate way. In Title 11, the language is there to define what we want to do. Just be a little more updated, a little more, and be a little more vocal and promoting the aspects of the waterfront, and without putting too much words or mystery into it. It's pretty straightforward, and we have an engaged group, and we appreciate the support from the city administration in that regard.
Thank you. Parks and Recreation Commission?
Thank you, Mayor Gabriel. Parks and Recreation Commission did not have a meeting in January as there was no agenda items. Their next meeting is Thursday, February 6th here. Thank you.
Planning and Zoning Commission?
Planning and Zoning also didn't have their last meeting. Their next meeting will be 22nd January. That'll be next Wednesday.
Beautification Committee? I don't think there's a report. Yeah, Tim was gone. I think they met last night. I should have got a report from my wife. Mini Grant Steering Committee, there is no report. On the report of the mayor, I don't have a lot of items. I hope everybody had a good holidays. It was a nice break there. I was fortunate enough to have my entire family at my house for close to 2 weeks for most of that time. So I did a lot of family stuff, and it was a good thing. I wanted to, I've got this cup sitting in front of me here through the meeting, and I'm kind of looking. I think the more I look at that, the more I like it. I appreciated the Divining Point presentation prior to the meeting, and administration's work on that, along with the marketing committee and the work that they're doing. I did coach the Kenai hockey team in the alumni game, and it was a great game. It went to a shootout, and I think it went to 7 or 8 players, Terry? Yeah, and we're getting to the point where we hadn't used everybody out, but we're almost to that point there, and that's kind of the way it goes. It was a great game, and that's what kind of keeps people coming back. I've always said I'd rather lose by a goal than win by 6. You know what I mean? So it kind of sets the stage for next year. I was able to present our own Allie Ostrander with a proclamation in between the first and second period. It was kind of surprising. I didn't think she knew that was coming, but just to recognize her accomplishments, throughout her career, starting in Kenai and all. I mean, when you read off all of the accomplishments, it was quite lengthy, but definitely it was very, very worth it. And I think she was appreciative of it, and wish her the best of luck with the continuance of her career. And I'm sure she'll inspire other young ladies in our community to try to succeed and do what she did. So the last thing I just wanted to mention was the Board of Fish is going to be convening for their 2020 Upper Cook Inlet Finfish meeting starting, I think, around the 6th or 7th of February. So I plan on being there for part of that. I won't be able to attend, obviously, that meeting. That session takes about 2 weeks or more, but I'll be kind of there for the eyes and ears of our city, and report back substantial changes that are going to affect our fishing community. With that, I'll probably have a better idea with and they have the proposals online. Anybody can go on and look at what user groups are proposing for the changes to regulation. But at any rate, I'll be, you know, like I said, if anything substantial comes up, I'll definitely be reporting back to the council on that. And with that, I'll turn it over to.
Just a quick observation. Just thank you for your focus on that, Mayor. I observed the article in the newspaper where perhaps gill netting hours are going to be curtailed or modified, and that's something that impacts our economy and opportunities here. So thanks for staying on top of that.
Yeah, that is one of the proposals that were put out there that would, under the paired restriction policy of where they restrict the in-river folks, they restrict the sedentary folks on times of particularly low Chinook abundance, that they're sort of looking at, you know, carving a little bit more flesh out of the commercial side when they get close. So that's going to be interesting. Good pickup, and that's one I'm following closely. So with that, I'll turn it over to our city manager, Mr. Ostrander.
Thank you, Mayor Gabriel. So one of the things that actually Mr. Eubank just reported to me today is we have our consumer price index year-over-year update. So for the past 12 months, we saw an increase of 0.22%. So compared to last year at 4%, significantly lower, close to flat over the last year. So big difference from last year to this. Also, now that we're getting close to the completion of the airport project, we're going to be renegotiating the airline operating agreement. That'll be Mary Bondurant, Terry Eubank, and I will be working with both Raven and Grant to renegotiate those. We last renegotiated them in 2018 or 19, and during that negotiation, we said that we were going to wait for the completion of the terminal project to renegotiate. So they're both expecting that, and we'll be doing that between now and the end of the fiscal year. I'd also like to make sure I direct your attention to my manager's report, and in there's a letter to Senator Peter Machicki at the direction of council. Both Mr. Bloom and I met with Senator Machicki and his chief of staff, Conrad Jackson, to talk about the application of personal use fishery permit fees. This letter is really a summary of the things that they requested at that meeting, and the last page of that actually includes a spreadsheet that talks about the number of household days that were fished in the last 5 years, the permits that are issued, and then in the end it looks at what a permit fee would generate statewide. And what we're recommending based on that analysis is that a $5 per permit fee be applied, which would generate, based on our analysis, it would generate about $110,000, just short of $110,000 for the city of Kenai annually. We think that that's an appropriate amount of revenue that would allow us to continue to provide the same level of services that we have in the past, but not do it in a way that the city has to subsidize the fisheries. So just want to make sure you were aware that that was in there. Also, the bridge access bike path, the agreement, DOT has committed to get that to me by the end of this week. And just so council is aware, when we initially applied for that grant, our request was only for $717,000. And you may recall when the grant was issued that it was significantly more, but it was $717,000 was what we requested. The grant amount that we received was actually $1.27 million, so significantly more. And the reason for that was because DOT felt that the project wasn't feasible at $717,000. Obviously, that additional grant amount does increase the match amount that the city is responsible for, which now is $126,000. But I think we've identified funds, likely through the Dobbins Spec Fund, to utilize for that match. Me and Mary Bondurant, Terry Eubank, Scott Curtin are all going up to Anchorage tomorrow to meet with FAA. It's a meeting that we've been having the last couple of years. That's very effective in going through what our airport improvement program is going to be for the next year and for the next 5 years. It's what enabled us to get the funding for the terminal project was that meeting, and we've got some additional projects that we'd like to get done in the airport that Mary's identified that we're going to talk with them about at that time. I've also decided to bring a grant writer on to the city. starting actually in early March. It's going to be a part-time position, 20 hours a week, but the focus for this position is going to be identifying match funds for the Bluff project. They'll also be able to support other grant opportunities for the city. We oftentimes find opportunities as staff here at the city, but we don't have the capacity to apply for those. So this is really going to be a test case, probably 6 to 12 months, where we'll put this grant writer in this position and see what the ROI on that position is. I'm anticipating that it will easily pay for itself, particularly with the Bluff project coming up, but again, it's a test case, and if we look to go with a more permanent solution, we'll look for a long-term funding source for that. I sent you an email last week, or maybe this week, about our Fire Chief Jeff Tucker is retiring. We're going to start the recruitment. We're going to do an external recruitment. We're going to extend our reach to the West Coast. We're going to post that by Monday of next week. And we certainly are looking to get a highly qualified person to fill that role. It's an important one for the city. I wanted to give you an update on the signage on the highway and also in Old Town. Actually, Coy, when he was presenting tonight, did mention to you that that was something that they were looking at. We have talked about what should be on the main sign as you're driving down the highway and being directed into Old Town. The sign that we're having created is going to say Old Town Kenai Historic District. Then once you get into Old Town, some of those directional signs, we're still looking at trying to figure out what those are going to look like aesthetically and so that we're consistent in Old Town. But that's something that, again, is a priority. We're going to make sure that we get those in place as quickly as we possibly can. On the mugs that are in front of you, I just wanted to make sure that the council knew that no taxpayer dollars were used for the purchase of those mugs. We felt strongly enough about this project and about the work that had been done that we wanted to get those to you. But we didn't want to spend taxpayer dollars on them, so no taxpayer dollars have been spent there, but I hope you enjoy them. We're really proud of the work that's been done there, and I wanted you guys to have a reminder on your desk every day of what they've accomplished. So, Katja Wolf, our new library director, started at the city on January 6th. Feel free to stop by and say hello. I think she's going to be a phenomenal addition to the library. She's hit the ground running, and everything that I've seen so far sounds really good. She says the staff has been hugely supportive, and she's really excited about being here at the city. Airport terminal project. Interior will be done by February 20th. What you're going to see is the exterior portion is going to extend into March. That's unfortunate, but it's what we're dealing with now. But at the interior, so all of the things inside will be done by February 20th. If you haven't been in there lately, we are getting much closer to a completed project in there. You can start to visualize what it's going to look when it's done. And last, as always, is bluff erosion. There's been no update since last time. We're still waiting for the PED approval through OMB at the federal level. We anticipate that to happen again in early February. And that's my report, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions of the city manager, Councilmember Peterkin?
Yeah, I've got a couple more comment. I think I know you and I've talked a lot about the dip netting. I don't know, I'd call it a user fee maybe for the card. I think it should be closer to $20 per card because it's for the entire family. And then maybe we can talk offline more about that, but I think especially if we're jumping in, maybe there's more to the conversation and I don't know, but I'd like to jump on that. On the grant we got for the video cameras for the senior place too, I'd just like to, Nate over at Pacific Star has a really good source for those, where to get cameras, and share his system with whoever we have working on that. And then dredging, we've got to keep that up high on the radar for being able to use our dock. So those are my three things. Glad to.
Mr. Ostrander?
Thank you, Mayor Gabriel and Councilmember Peterkin. I probably should have stated that the letter that's in the packet that is to Senator Murchicki is a request for state legislation that would would add that permit fee onto it. So it's not something that we get to dictate here. This is just a request that he introduce legislation that would add that permit fee. So one of the reasons why we recommended the $5 per permit is simply because many of the other legislators are from other parts of the state, and we were concerned if that number was too high, that it might give us less chance of effectively passing that legislation is the thought process behind that. But I'm more than happy to talk about that offline too.
Sure. Just one follow-up. Would we get, I mean, it's for a DipNet card, is that what it would be for? So essentially exactly what we wanted to do, just come from the state, which is perfect. So yeah, I'd love to talk to you more about that.
And just for clarity here, Mr. Ostrander, is the administration planning on keeping our other fees the same then for parking, camping, and?
At this point, that would be the intent, yes.
Okay.
Thank you, Mayor.
Any other questions of the city manager? Councilmember Naxton.
Yeah, I wanted to say I think the terminal building's coming along well. Lots of things are happening quickly with the flooring, and as soon as that ceiling goes up, which will happen probably quickly too, it'll change a lot there. But I was wondering if it looks like we've touched just about everything in that building. Is there any anticipation of any other additional work that you see that any change orders of significance? Naturally, there's going to be some.
Mr. Ostrander.
Thank you, Mayor Gabriel. Councilmember Naxted. There is one possible substantial change order still, although it really depends on where we end up when we get towards the end of the project. So as a part of the project, the existing boilers in the terminal building were not replaced. So we've still got the same boilers that are in there. Since the project has begun, it appears that those boilers are likely going to need to be replaced in the relatively near future, probably within the next 5 years. So while we are involved in this project and under an AIP program, we may look to include that in the project if we can. But that's the only thing that I can anticipate is any significant additional changes associated with the project.
Based on, if I might, just on that comment, if we've got an older boiler in what's almost like a brand new old building, it seems like now would be the time to do that if it's at all feasible. We're going to have to do it within the next 5 years anyway. So I'll look forward to hearing more about that later.
Vice Mayor Malloy.
Thank you. Just wanted to comment that once again that I appreciate the reports from the departments that are in the packet. They're really informative, gives a lot of information, and that supplements, what you report verbally here to us. And I also wanted to mention that I thought that the renovation project at the senior center was looking really good too, and close to completion moving forward. So that's was appreciated hearing about that too. And also thanks for during the period of time when we didn't have meetings, keeping us informed by email of what was happening in the city, like that water issue and stuff like that. So we appreciate that. Thank you.
Councilmember Glendenning.
Yes, I just had a thought, just recalling the presentation that was made tonight. I call it Portals of Opportunity, but how and where you will ask is, I think, a superior concept. But they had mentioned camping opportunities. Do we have that in our view to, at least if not this year, next year, try and come up with a scheme is a bad word, but an opportunity for people to camp within our city, perhaps even in the vicinity of the DipNet fishery? And then on the shoulder season, of course, we can provide ample opportunity for folks to come here and recreate in motorhomes or whatever. Just nod your head. You have that in your view. There's opportunities out there, correct?
Mr. Ostrander.
Thank you, Mayor Gabriel. Councilmember Glendenning. Yeah, I still think that the proposal that administration provided at the last meeting, where we construct an RV park using the grant funds for the North and South Beach along Spruce, is an excellent location for tent camping and RV parking. I think that, it's something that we need to revisit with council to determine how to utilize that $400,000. But I continue to be supportive of that location for that purpose. But yeah, it needs to be a priority, I believe, of the city to provide some type of camping and RV parking in our city. It's, the only location we have currently is Walmart, now that Beluga RV Park has been closed. So it's something that is a glaring absence here in the city.
Councilmember Peterkin.
Yeah, it just sparked my memory of that when we were going through those, that weren't you going to pursue that other lot by the highway, that old Anchor Trailer Park? Are we looking into that still, or?
Mr. Ostrander.
Thank you, Mayor Gabriel. Councilmember Peterkin. Yeah, so I did, and I spoke to the owners of that property. They actually have submitted an offer to sell the property. And I'm in communication with them now. As I guess you likely know, the city is tasked with purchasing their properties at no more than fair market value. So right now, I think that the offer that's on the table is significantly above that. So I'm working with them to see if it's a viable option. The other consideration is whether or not that is a property that council is supportive of us purchasing too. So I would need specific direction to acquire that from council before we did anything.
Yeah, I kind of thought that's where we left off with that last little bit of money. Like, we wanted to, look at that. I could be wrong. We have to look through the notes, but that was in my mind. I don't know.
Mr. Ostrander.
Thank you, Mayor Gabriel. Councilmember Peterkin. Yeah, but I don't have the authority to purchase the property based on what council provided. I am working with the owners of that property to see if it's a viable acquisition for the city.
Councilman Glendenning.
Yeah, thank you for doing that. Properties in that area, I think, would lend themselves to recreational camping and folks enjoying our area and pushing numbers. That's yours and Terry's bailiwick. The concept of what you alluded to, I think is worthwhile pursuing, and I'm sure you are. Sometimes negotiations take a while, and other opportunities within negotiations present themselves, but you're aware of that, and I encourage you to, no matter how it turns out, come to a resolution. Thank you.
Any other questions of the city manager? Councilmember Naxton.
Sorry, but one other thing that you did mention tonight was the grant writer, and I think that's an excellent idea, and it helps supplement what our staff is already doing, and then some more with the bluff. I concur that I think a person like that would more than pay for themselves, and it's a necessary thing in our city. So thanks for doing that.
I just have one last comment. Commander McHale said, go ahead and we could, purchase more or, get more signs if we wanted to. I'd like to actually have one of the Purple Heart City signs for each, access into Kenai, one from the spur coming in, one from the spur from Soldotna, then North Kenai, and then bridge access. If there's any concurrence from council that, I don't think there'll be a huge expense to that, but I think it's important. Three, yeah. So we got one now, but Councilman Glendenning.
By the Uptown Memorial Day, we do have remembrance of our military veterans, and there's a memorial there. Perhaps put a sign like that, if not on that monument, in the area, would lend itself to remembering also. That's a very, very important place. I go there quite often.
Yeah, I mean, that one there for sure. I know the ones along the, the spur and bridge access, we'd have to go through DOT for a permit to do that, or at least Scott Thomas would be our traffic safety engineer. We'd want to touch base with him, but I don't think that would be a problem. Any other questions, city manager? City attorney, Mr. Bloom.
Thank you, Mayor Gabriel, members of council. I don't have any comments, but I'm happy to answer any questions if you've got any.
Any questions of the city attorney? Seeing none, moving on quickly. We'll go to the to the city clerk, Ms. Hines.
Thank you, Mayor Gabriel, members of council. I will be out of the office this Friday. My daughter has her ski race in Girdwood, and then just giving you an update, we have met with the borough clerk and the other city clerks from around the Kenai Peninsula Borough to discuss the elections, by mail hybrid process that the election stakeholder group recommended, and looking at what implementation of that would entail. We will be meeting again in Homer on the 24th, Friday the 24th, so I will be there for that day. But at this point, it looks like, and I definitely still, once I have more information on what it's going to, what it would look like, I'll take you guys through a work session to sort of explain that, so we know whether or not we want to be on board or off board with that. But at this point, the borough clerk we're looking at 2021 for implementation, because in 2020 we will have a primary in August, general or regular election in October. We're anticipating a mayoral runoff also later in October, and then a general election in November. And with the turnaround of getting the equipment, the state has new equipment, and we won't be able to get it all turned around that fast. So we're using the old 20-year equipment for the local elections in 2020, and then we will make decisions for the 2021 election and be ready for all of that well in advance of the 2021 elections. So that's, if you have any, all I have. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Any questions of the city clerk? Oh, seeing none, we're going to circle back to Mr. Ostrander for comment. Mr. Ostrander?
I apologize, Mayor. I forgot to mention one thing. I did send an email to council that I'm going to be out of the office Friday of this week and then all of next week, but I wanted to make sure that I verbally told you at the meeting too. So Friday of this week and then all of next week I'll be out of the office, and Terry Eubank will be acting city manager.
Thank you. Okay, is there anybody from the general public that'd like to address the council at this time on any item? Seeing none, we'll go to council comments. Councilman Glendenning.
Yes, again, just thank you for for that presentation and the work session tonight. It was kind of enervating. It was exciting. I like the idea of this new font that's being developed. For 25 years I've been locked up in Helvetica, so I think this will expand my perspective of that type of communication. So thank you for broadening my horizons. And it was mentioned, Councilor Mulley, about the fire hydrant down there by Beaver Loop. Those guys were working in really grim circumstances. I was visiting with some of my contractor buddies this week, and just kudos to how quickly they were able to mobilize. They had to go from dry equipment to out there and fix it and back. And the city was very responsive in posting notices in the affected areas. They identified the problem, had a solution, and then at least get us through the winter, an idea of how to maybe insulate that area a little better. And kudos to our public works department. We have census coming up. Our city planner and we're on a little local committee here, trying to help promote the idea of getting out the call for the census. A little working solution. The slogan is "Count everybody because everybody counts." And I think as we get that information out, that idea promoted, I think we will have a better response. Traditionally, rural Alaska has been vastly undercounted, and what I see in the media and what I read, that's being addressed. And then also the idea of the grant writer, I think is just a wonderful idea. Just to have a timely application of this particular talent, I believe will create a lot of opportunities for us. And we've been sniveling about trying to get our waterfront maintained, and I'm sure this person would be able to find opportunities for us to not upgrade, just bring back into previous standards the infrastructure presence that we had down there. And so yeah, going into this year, we have some good opportunities, and just thanks everybody, and we'll see you next meeting.
Councilmember Peterkin.
Yeah, I also echo it. I appreciate the presentation. I like the logo. I think they did a good job, Paul, and our staff that helped them. I appreciate all of that. The one picture of the Bering Sea, the beautiful boat in the video, cannot pull up to our dock anymore. Our dock is too shallow. We have to dredge it. So that's just, I know I keep harping, but there's just more and more things keep coming up, and I want to be really vocal about that with everybody on council. And I do like to hear the grant writer idea. I think that's an awesome idea. I was glad to hear about the bike path. That's exciting. I think that's gonna, what people are talking about is a better place to live, you know, safer for your kids to ride their bikes and all that. I also think that the whole peninsula, when we, John and everybody works on the marathon and that big bike ride and everything we do that Doc Hansen started and everything. I mean, we need to finish the loop. After we get this done, we gotta find a grant to cross the bridge and close the loop so we have the whole peninsula circle here. And it just, one more thing we gotta do, but I think this is a great meeting and great job.
Thank you. Councilmember, or Vice Mayor Malloy.
Thank you, Mayor Gabriel. I wanted to thank Chief Tucker for his service to the city of Kenai and, you know, wish him well in his retirement. Also want to thank the mayor for the proclamation at the beginning of the meeting. That was really excellent, you know, and I agree about the signs, you know, and that was an important thing to do, and like you said, a great way to start out 2020. Also want to thank the city attorney for, you know, all his work on the online sales tax. That's above and beyond his, you know, normal duties, which he has a lot of work, and I'm sure he'll ensure that the trademark is owned by the city of Kenai for like the best place to Alaska and the logo and those other things. You know, I know that'll be happening by the city attorney. And like my colleague said, I really appreciated the work session on the marketing, where it's at and where they're going forward, and support it. So thank you for doing that. That was really timely, and so good work tonight, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Naxton.
Yeah, thank you. Mayor, I'd like to thank you for doing that proclamation on the Purple Heart. I think that was a real special thing to do. It certainly was for me. And I think that you're going to find that a lot of people have the same sentiment in our city. So that was good. And thank you, Mr. Ostrander, for the cup. It's a fine cup. and I love the logo and the branding, and kind of wanted to say that the marketing presentation by Divining Point was a treat, actually, to listen to them. I recognized at this meeting, you know, their depth and their ability and how they approached something kind of abstract, I suppose, is, you know, how do you brand a city, and how do you what are you going to do to bring people here? I would have no idea, but the way they presented it and let us down on their thought process and everything was exquisite, actually. And I felt a little surprised right at the end. You know, as well, we got to this point, and this is how it's going to work. You know, when somebody wants to Google the best place in Alaska, Kenai is going to come up, and I just felt that in itself was brilliant. Looking back, it almost looked obvious, but it wasn't, you know. But I think that's part of the professionalism of those guys. But anyway, I thought they did a very good job, and I think they chosen well. Thanks.
Thank you. Vice Mayor Malloy, do you have a comment? No. Oh, yeah, no. Yeah, no problem. So, yeah, as far as the proclamation goes, I would like to recognize and thank Vice Mayor Malloy for connecting with Commander McHale to help facilitate that this evening. So it was a lot of credit goes to Vice Mayor Malloy to get that done, so. Seeing, we do not have an executive session on the agenda, and seeing that we have no other pending items, this meeting is adjourned.